31 crore, and it paid a corporate tax of only 4.89 crore. So on a revenue turnover of 33,630 crore, you pay a corporate tax of 4.89 crore. So that's why minuscule investment, maximum turnover, minimum tax. Okay, so this is the reality of these companies. Yes. Similarly, so do this. I've already told you how they created this name lenders, these control sellers. Again, it's a both a market breach practice as well as a tax avoidance behavior, because they are booking losses to different companies. So then they cannot aggregate as profit. So they will not pay any tax. So these are all methods which are done. Please. So this is one company which I wanted to show you. This is a ground level investigation which my team carried out. So this company you see, Health Happiness Private Limited. It is one of the major sellers on the Flipkart platform. It does a turnover of 2,290 crores. Where is it located? It is located in Madhipur village. If you go there, you cannot even stand. It is a run-down village area. From there, it is showing a turnover of 2,290 crores. So these are the kind of name lenders they have created. Another one, please. This one gets even better. It gets better. This one comes from a residential premises. This company, this name lender company. And what is the turnover they did? 1,612 crores in the first year itself. First year itself, from zero you go to 1,612 crores. So this is the extent. That is the extent of the violation. Can you just go to the next slide? So I told this is as far as Flipkart is concerned. So now Amazon. Now we come to Amazon. Amazon, I told you, it is its business policy. It is its, you can say it is its ethical policy. Pay no tax to the government. That is its ethical policy. So, and it always does this either by violating or exploiting the existing loopholes in law. So as young law students, you are not only to see compliances and non-compliances of law, you are also to judge the loopholes in law. Very important. Very important. You can, I mean, of course, you can swing it both ways. You can exploit the loopholes to protect your client, but you can, plug the loopholes to protect the government and those who are on the path of righteousness. So that also you can do. So that is where your own individual discrimination and professional behavior will come into play. But be as that may, we come down to Amazon. So Amazon has 17 companies registered in India. Now for financial year 16, their revenues total 11,028 crore, and the tax they paid was 219 crore. Out of this 17 companies, the maximum tax was accounted for by one company which was incorporated in 2004. That is Amazon Development Center. It is an older company. Now that company paid a tax of 186 crore. Now if you leave aside ADC, the Amazon Development Center company, and if you take the account of only these 16 companies which are engaged in marketplace, e-commerce activity, marketplace and inventory in their case, their total turnover stood at 8,028 crore, and they showed they paid a tax of 34 crore only. So that is 0.42% of the total revenue. So these 16 companies, they booked a turnover, they had a revenue turnover of 8,028 crore, but through all these machinations of complex structures, they paid a tax of 34 crore only. Now please. So this we have already covered on cloud. So we just cloud. I've already covered on this cloud. So this is not typical to India. It is the behavior of Amazon globally. So worldwide, Amazon did a sales of $136 billion, but it paid a tax of only on global sales 1.71 billion. Now this Amazon Europe is another interesting case. I mean, in fact, you should study Amazon UK also, the logistics company. It's very, very interesting to see how these companies conduct themselves. Amazon Europe, is based in Luxembourg, and they booked a pre-profit, they showed a pre-profit tax of 59.6 million euro. Only 59.6, and Europe is one of their robust territories. And as a result, the company paid a tax of only 16.5 million. And imagine this on a total sales turnover of 21.6 billion euro. So in Europe, they did a sales of 21.6 billion. They showed a pre-profit of 59.6 million and ended up paying a tax of only 16.5 million. Now countries all over the world are very agitated with this behavior of tax avoidance by these companies. So Europe and America, they are actively pursuing cases, and they are changing their laws. In fact, I'll come to that later. What are the multilateral instrumentalities which are there to plug such behavior, and about a whole lot of things about permanent establishment. What is a permanent establishment? These are all things to interest you as law students, and how you cannot do what is known as BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting, how it is being made difficult increasingly by such multilateral agreements. In fact, as law students, you should study that very, very keenly. So then go to the next slide. Now we come to Paytm. Now when Paytm started, now everywhere you see Paytm, and Vijay Shankar Sharma is celebrated as he himself celebrates himself most of the time as this big entrepreneur. Of course, nothing wrong with that. He should promote his company. But it started as basically a company which used to market mobile content. So he got lucky and he landed a contract with Airtel. That is how his journey started. So from there after doing that, he started into content business. So this business continued for a decade, and then in 2011 he launched Paytm, and thereafter 2011 and as a platform for mobile recharge. Paytm when it started was a mobile recharge product. The mobile wallet services started much later in 2014, and now they have a banking license, so they are a bank as well. So Paytm has 10 Indian companies. But make no mistake, Paytm is not owned by Indians. Vijay Shankar Sharma has less than 20% stake in Paytm. The major shareholders of Paytm are Alibaba, which is the Chinese e-com giant. 40% belongs to Alibaba. And the second major shareholder is an entity called SAIF. Again, it is not transparently known who is behind this entity called SAIF. It is a Mauritius-based entity. No one knows who is behind this entity. So Paytm also provides mobile banking services. Now the question for investigative agencies and for other policy policy functionaries is, Indian agencies particularly, is that when a company is 40% owned by a Chinese company, Chinese major, how and banking functions presupposes individual personal data. Banking, you cannot conduct a banking function without your personal data, your unique data. So how advisable it is to part with such critical data to a company which is majority owned by a Chinese major. So that is also something which should concern the Indian agency as far as Paytm is concerned. Okay, go to the next slide. So Snapdeal, again another interesting story. So Snapdeal was started again by young people, Kunal Bell and Rohit Kumar Masan, but they have minority stake in the company. Majority of the stake is with foreign investors. Now Snapdeal has 10 companies, but Snapdeal has been through a very, very rough patch. So the highest tax it has paid is 10 lakhs only. So it did a total in financial year 2016, it did a business of a sales revenue, it clocked of 2,260 crore, and it booked a loss, it showed a loss of 3,734 crores. And then subsequently it went through a bad patch, and because of mismanagement and a whole lot of other HR issues. So what happened, and then it had to go on a heavy, you have read that in the papers, it went through heavy layoffs, retrenchment, and virtually on closures. Overnight people were handed pink slips and they were asked to go. In fact, situations came to such a bad status that some of the important investors like eBay, it had to book its investment, take on record its books, the investment in Snapdeal as a loss. That's what eBay did. It booked a loss of 31 million as loss in its books. And SoftBank also, it wrote off 1 billion in losses because it was not performing well in the market. But in spite of all this behavior, Snapdeal promoters still got to make money. How? Because they had 10 companies. So there was this one company which is known as Vulcan Express Private Limited. It is a unique logistics company. Of course, it's a very good product. As a company, it's a very good product, end-to-end logistic company, from picking up parcels to delivery to liquidation and everything. The whole supply chain, they do it very well. So this company got sold to Kishore Biyani for 35 crores. And their wallet services, mobile wallet services, it got picked up by Freecharge, it got picked up by Axis Bank, because Axis Bank wanted to get into mobile wallet services, they needed a ready-made product. So they bought Freecharge for 385 crores. So even when there are losses, even when investors are booking losses on their books, they still get to make good money by selling existing companies. Because IT, once you develop a product and it has a shelf life, you can always monetize it. So ultimately it is no matter how many violations you make or what you do, you always have cash in hand. Okay, so this is, and since they are loss-making company, they can always say no ability to pay, and that's what they do. So they pay no taxes. So that is how they behave. Can you just go to the next? Now I want some student, because it is futuristic looking. I want some student to volunteer and come and read these slides, and then I will explain what needs to be done. So Ganesh, can you ask any student to volunteer? Yeah.
Point number 1, the apparent price distortion needs to be investigated. The discounts are routinely advertised. The sellers offering such recurring discounts need to be asked to explain how the discounts are being funded.
Clear? It's clear to you? Because this is because we just stating the problem is not enough. Because even in an assignment, if you are given, just stating the problem is not enough. You should be, as students, be able to critically evaluate the problem and suggest a roadmap.
Who will ask the question?
Sorry?
Who will ask the question?
These are the government agencies. Because now if you read today's Economic Times, the investigation wing of the Finance Ministry, they are looking into the violations of Press Note 3, 2016. And they can ask their legal teams, their compliances department, that how this is happening. Because the impact is huge. What is being impacted is a traditional sector, which is to the tune of 7 lakh business people and 4 lakh crore turnover. So your domestic traditional sector, the impact is huge of such predatory pricing and predatory funding. Because they get funding at very low rate of interest, 1% or 1.5%, or no rate of interest, because the principals have deep pockets, so they put in money through these control cells. So government has to ask these investigative questions. They have to see it, evaluate it, and that's what they are doing. In fact, today's paper, that's why you should peruse the papers. You should, as law students, and if you are interested in corporate law, you should read economic newspapers and economic news websites regularly. That should be a part of your daily reading. It's very, very important to know because law is evolving, as you know, as students, law students. It's always evolving based on existing realities. So you should know the realities to understand how law is evolving. So this is something which government needs to do. It needs to check rampant price distortions. Because in telecom also we do it. Because that is mandated as it is, as you know. I mean, I was slightly digressing because routinely operators put out advertisements and then TRAI does open houses and things like that. So there are mechanisms in place, and that is the way it has to be dealt with.
Point number 2, e-commerce companies should be called upon to explain why they are incurring such losses in their related entities and what is the business model of such entities. This is especially true for Amazon Seller Services and eCart Logistics.
eCart Logistics is a logistic company of Flipkart, which shows the maximum losses.
Third point is, any commercially inexplicable expenses reimbursed / subsidies provided / discounts offered through allied operations should be examined as indirect / direct influence on price.
Clear? Is this clear?
The existing law related to non-interference in pricing of goods and services by marketplace and maintaining a level playing field should be strictly enforced.
This is provided by government policy. This is what Press Note 3 2016 is all about.
Distinction between marketplace and inventory-based systems of e-commerce have to be clarified and firmly established.
This is something which the DIPP of Commerce Ministry needs to do. It has to firmly establish, because many players are taking advantage of this lack of clarification. So this has to be clause by clause firmly established, so that it is in watertight compartments. Next slide, please. So we dealt with what should be done in terms of violations of FDI rules. Now we go to what should be done in terms of tax avoidance.
Okay, tax avoidance, point number 1. There is a global climate against tax avoidance and recoveries are being made. Internationally, we are seeing such news on a regular basis, particularly from European Union.
This is self-explanatory.
India and 67 countries have put in place an agreement to plug loopholes in existing laws that allowed companies to evade taxes by artificially shifting their place of business.
This example I have told you already explained Flipkart's model. It's a holding company in Singapore, but all the sales is happening in India. So this is known as base erosion and profit shifting. So invoices you will get from Singapore, you will not get from India. So this is what all European in EU they were doing.
So somewhat they are rotating the black money also.
Yeah, that also they are doing, but this is clear. Base erosion, black money you have to generate intelligence data. If you cannot do intelligence data, you cannot generate it. But certain things you can do in terms of statutory controls.
Yes.
That you should do as a country. That is what European Union is doing, because what they were doing, what the European Union citizens were facing is, and the companies over there, in fact it became a big civic issues, because all the sales turnover were being booked in their countries, but they were getting invoices from Ireland. So because Ireland has a very minimum corporate tax structure, maybe 1.5%. So base erosion and Germany has say 31%. So base erosion and profit shifting was happening. So it's a major issue internationally.
Recently, India has signed the multilateral convention, an outcome of the OECD G20 project to tackle base erosion and profit shifting. BEPS is resorted to by MNCs through tax planning strategies by exploiting gaps and mismatches in tax rules.
Like some destination will have a higher tax regime, like Germany and Ireland. Some will have less. So they will move their companies to Ireland, okay, and do the billing there. So like Facebook is also doing. Other companies are also doing. All IT companies are doing. Apple was doing it. So in US also it became a major issue because all the invoicing was being done from Ireland. So they had to pay in recent terms.
What this convention does? The convention will modify India's treaties in order to curb revenue loss through treaty abuse and base erosion and profit shifting strategies by ensuring profits are taxed where substantial economic activities generating the profits are carried out and where value is created.
This is also clear, I think. Like if you are doing sales in India, you cannot book your sales in Singapore. If you are doing sales in UK, you cannot book your sales in Ireland. Wherever the economic activity is happening, the sales have to be booked there. This is what essentially base erosion and profit sharing shifting strategy mix.
Artificial avoidance of permanent establishment by MNCs is the key concern of each signatory country. Since this is the main source of base erosion, MNCs often resort to artificial shifting of profits to low or no tax locations, resulting in little or no or all corporate tax being paid.
Same point.
India has chosen a stringent definition of PE.
PE is permanent establishment.
India has recently amended treaties with countries such as Singapore, Cyprus and Mauritius, providing for levy of taxes in the country where income is generated rather than the country of residence of the company.
So where income is generated, you pay your taxes there rather than where you incorporate the company. Can you just repeat it? So this is my book. It is available on Amazon also. So, e-com in India, violations and tax avoidance. So it has complete, those of you who are number crunchers or are interested very much in the technical detail clause and proviso detail of law, something which is of enormous interest to me. So you can read this book, and I've instructed my office that from Monday to Wednesday, this book is priced at $4.99, but I have asked my office to put it on a discount. So it will be available at 150 rupees from Monday to Wednesday. So an AVP concession. So if you are interested, you can buy it and read it. It has a lot of economic and legal data. Okay, I'll be open for questions if you have any. I hope you could understand whatever was presented to you. Thanks.
Any questions?
Ma'am, I have 3 to 4 sub points. And actually, the thing is that in case of in place of dispute, where will the place of jurisdiction? Where it will be the Ireland or it will be in the UK? In that case, but in our case, and usually we see in Amazon, as we see the courier is sent by through Kolkata. As I just ordered an AC, it will sent by Kolkata and received in UP. So in case of dispute, where will the place of jurisdiction in that case?
See, again, that is why government is considering a new e-commerce policy. So that is why like I said, law has to look at realities, what you are talking. But now I think that is also addressed to a larger extent, because now you have one uniform tax because of GST. So that is.
Yeah, ma'am. The other thing is that I have.
If you are talking in terms of destination where you are getting the invoice from, say, Singapore or other, so that structure will be mentioned by one protocol which has been signed called BAPA. So you can study that also. That specifies the protocol where such adjudications will be taking place. So that's why all these treaty changes are also taking place. In fact, today also there is some news in Economic Times and Mauritius about this matter only, what you are talking about, and how the tax is to be treated. So a whole lot of taxation changes in taxation law with bilaterally. BAPA is basically bilateral, just tell you the full form. So, yes, Abhishek. So this is the advance agreement. So that is happening. So you can see that. So this treaty you should study in fact detail. Is the bilateral advance pricing agreement. So it is, and it has mutual agreement procedures, MAPs. So they are the ones who are setting up the structures where such.
The other one is whether the GST number is beneficial in the case of tax evasion.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, whether the GST number, GSTN, will be beneficial in case of tax evasion case.
Yes, of course, because GST you cannot avoid tax. You have to, GST means that tax has to be captured at every level. But that is one part of the issue.
Government is doing something.
Yeah, that is one part of the issue. But what is happening is, like, if you are getting from Kolkata, that invoice from Kolkata, they have a network of sellers, no? So they will still show it as a loss. Ultimately, they will pay and get recovery because GST you can also get refund. No?
Yeah.
They will be getting refunds. They will say we have paid so much on tax on GST, so we have booked a loss. So ultimately corporate tax they will not be paying. They will pay GST because they cannot avoid, but they will book it as a loss. That because we paid GST, we incurred losses, and hence we cannot pay corporate income tax. So what you capture by way of indirect tax, you lose out by way of direct tax. So that will happen.
Yeah, the third last one is,
Yeah.
ma'am, in the case of discount, cashback and all, we say that, as you mentioned earlier, that who will ask the question. I think, ma'am, Competition Commission of India should regulate the same.
Competition Commission of India is there, Ministry of
In
Finance.
case of predatory pricing.
Yeah, but Competition Commission of India, predatory pricing is of course its domain. But Competition Commission of India can ask these questions only when there is a complaint before it.
Okay.
Okay, when there is a complaint has to be generated.
Oh.
Only government, or of course it can take you, if it becomes very big, then suo motu cognizance it can take and summon these companies. But otherwise it is the work of the government, financial intelligence unit, finance ministry, they are absolutely established units, both in commerce ministry and finance ministry to look at these issues. And from time to time, traditional retail sector, all your very strong associations, retail bodies, they are complaining and they are agitating on these issues. I think that's why also you are seeing so much of activity. But this detailing, because ultimately any case stands on merits of legal points. So that homework on legal points in terms of violations, in terms of avoidance, that has to be produced. So how much also associations, I should not say it, but associations are lacking in that, It's more of political speeches and very little of specifics. So generalized statements don't get you anywhere in a court, you know that very well. You have to have concrete evidence, specific facts. Generalized nonsense, no one court, you are wasting court's time. No one will listen. Okay, fine lag jayega. Application पर ही fine lag jayega. So that is why evidence has to be very, very strong.
Any more questions?
Are these companies still in the inventory system? Because whenever you order something, हमारे पास message आते रहते हैं customer that the seller is reaching the inventory to pick up your product. It will reach some other place then.
So those are all generated content. Generated content. Those are not genuine content. Please make a differentiation between generated content and genuine content. Okay. So they run inventory-based systems and the cloak. These are all cloaks basically, smoke screens which are used. And they run it, how to operationalize it through a network of controlled servers. So that is the reality of e-commerce practices basically.
Ma'am, you are directly taking on TLCs, that is trans corporations. I mean, Amazon is one of the most powerful TLCs in the world. And you are directly writing a book. Are you not challenging and it is possible? Do you think that it might hamper you in the future?
Now I am too old to worry about all these things. I have spent a lifetime writing, much bigger sharks also we have seen, telecom scam and, Mahabaps in the economic sector I have seen. So this is no concept, absolutely not a consideration when I write something.
Any more questions?
Ma'am, one thing I must mention here, that the National Consumer Helpline number is very recently opened a new column for the online e-commerce sector, and they are resolving the same, and also they are briefing about the current status of your complaint. You can track your complaint status. So I think this will be very informative.
Yeah, but again, what you are mentioning is more on the consumer part, consumer service.
Yes,
So,
yes,
but
yes.
money is going out of government pockets. The consumer helpline will not address exchequer issues. Exchequer issues have to be handled by government. Helpline is for consumers, so that you are served right. So legal redressal is there for, like a ombudsman, basically look into consumer grievances. That's its function.
Let's take one more question.
Ma'am, in case of defective products being delivered, when we shop through an e-commerce or e-marketplace, so to say, so what is the current status of jurisprudence on intermediary liability? So does it exist substantially or not?
So anyone, the seller is responsible for your paying your damages.
the place of
Anyone
jurisdiction.
who sells it, the seller,